Neil Gaiman's novel Anansi Boys was initially published in 2005. Now, it's sometimes mistakenly thought of as a sequel to his book American Gods. The two do share a character, the green fedora and yellow glove wearing Mr. Nancy, who likes to flirt with beautiful women and hang out in karaoke bars. He is the same charismatic trickster from American Gods. However, Anansi Boys is a standalone novel, as it focuses on the story of Mr. Nancy's two sons. Fat Charlie and his brother are nothing alike. In fact, they don't even know each other at the beginning of the book. But as they spend more time together, their very different lives begin to clash. Gaiman always seems to start his stories in the grounded and familiar real world, and this one opens in contemporary London. We also spend some time in Florida, but eventually we get to a juncture between reality and a mysterious place full of the mythology and magic that are the author's signature. When we first meet Fat Charlie, he's a lovable loser. He hates his job, while his boss and his girlfriend's mom hate him. His life is mundane, but as he starts to learn more about his unique heritage, the fantastic and mythological elements begin to take a greater hold on his narrative. Spider is the cool and confident sibling, without the inherently thoughtful and considerate nature of his brother. He seems to hold more knowledge and ability when it comes to the family legacy, but finds himself oddly drawn to conventional notions of career and relationship. Beyond Mr. Nancy's Boys, this novel has a great cast of secondary characters. They're all interesting, and they all end up being somebody different than they initially appeared to be. It's rather a good trick that Gaiman pulls off. He manages to weave killer flamingos, teleportation, witches and mermaids, neurotic ghosts, and West African and Caribbean folktales into one cohesive and engaging story. This is a novel about brothers and rivals, fathers and sons. It's about mirroring and doubling. It's also about the power of music, myth, and storytelling. There are some scenes of gruesome violence, but somehow the book remains whimsical and humorous throughout. It's actually quite funny, and while a few of the gags are telegraphed from a ways away, many of them land well and hit hard. Anansi Boys is being adapted into a television show, and I'm sure when that's eventually released, it'll bring a new wave of readers to this charming and imaginative book. The first time I read this novel, it was from this copy, which I thought was the first American edition. It's not. Turns out it's actually from the Science Fiction Book Club. Under the dust jacket, it has all black boards with gold lettering. Later, I came across the actual first US edition in a different bookshop, and I picked that up. The scale is the most obvious difference, but the book club edition also has a darker cover image with a glossy finish, while the real version has a purple foil sheen and features embossed lettering. The boards here are also black, but have metallic blue printing with Gaiman's drawing of a spider on the front. The book club version has white end papers, while this one has nice textured purple end papers. The most important difference to me is in the paper and printing quality. In the book club edition, the paper is thin and feels like the newsprint that's often found in cheap pocketbooks. While here, it's a smoother and thicker acid-free stock with much clearer printing. Both copies feature the author's drawing of a spider on the inside and close with a brief acknowledgement section. Neil Gaiman's books tend to see a lot of limited, signed, and special binding releases, but I'd heard a lot of high praise for the Folio edition. So when I had the chance to get my hands on it at a good price, I decided to take it. So let's do this. Here we have Anansi Boys from the Folio Society. This version was originally released in 2019 and is presented in one of the most distinct slipcases I've ever seen. It's designed by Francis Vallejo and features an incredible wraparound image that combines different styles and textures. Parts of the image, like the details on Fat Charlie's father's face and undershirt, and this tiger and spider on the other side, are rendered with a high degree of realism. Other elements of the piece, like this figure being chased by an evil bird, are simplistic. There's an interplay between the matte finish and a glossier finish, which you might be able to see in these spot-varnished clouds or these leaf veins. Finally, there are textured elements with a rougher embossing, like on the green fedora in this jacket. The cover of the book itself is also dynamic. The two echoed figures mirror each other on the front and back. On the spider side, we see him against a star field and waves with fluffy yellow clouds. Here's a lime, which is actually a pretty significant part of the book, and this might suggest a starfish, which is an important symbol. The Fat Charlie side is busier, with the same sky and water background, but the yellow clouds are storming here with lightning bolts and birds done in silver foil. Other characters are also featured in this collage-style image. We've got Graham Coates and Daisy and Rosie. This cover image is blocked on a silky cloth. On the spine, we note the author name in silver, the title in a 3D mirror font that we will see carry over to the interior, and the publisher logo, also in silver foil. The binding is finished with green head and tail bands that match the green of these webs against black, which has been applied to all three sides of the text block. Finally, this green is used again for the ribbon bookmark, which is a great touch I haven't encountered much in folio books outside the short-lived collectibles subline. If we crack the book open, we see plain green end papers in a medium stock. The book is printed on Abbey Pure Rough paper, which is thick, has a bit of tooth to it, and comes in at a slightly creamy white according to my color swatches. Each of the novel's 14 chapters has this progressive title page that tells a sequential story about a spider, a bird, and a tiger, with the chapter numbers spelled out in the same 3D mirror font from the spine. When we bring back the William Morrow first edition for a brief side-by-side, we can see that the Folio Society version is slightly bigger, with an extra centimeter in both the height and width. The font size is larger and darker, with generous spacing and margins in the folio version. There is a brief biography of each of the three main contributors to this book, something that I wish was in every folio novel. The introduction is by Nalo Hopkinson, an author and academic. She provides some background of her familiarity with Anansi stories from her youth, she comments on the characters, and she explains how she originally consulted on the novel itself to help with the Anglo-Caribbean speech. Then she finishes with some thoughtful commentary on the cultural representation in the novel and the need for authors writing outside their lived experience to get it right even with artistic license. In her 5 pages, Hopkinson avoids spoilers, so this introduction is safe for first-time readers of the novel. Beyond what we've already seen on the slipcase and the cover, Francis Vallejo also provides the interior artwork here, and there is a lot of it. He's an artist and a professor from Detroit, and has worked in comics and has illustrated other books. Here, he's provided black and white and color illustrations. Beyond the sequential chapter pages, the rest of the black and white pieces are integrated throughout the text. Let's take a look at them now. The title page features the mirror text with a drawing of a spider hanging down from the Y. There are a number of these spread pieces that emphasize the settings, starting with this one that depicts the death of Fat Charlie's father at a karaoke bar, as recounted on the phone by Mrs. Higgler. There's a great variety of expression from the patrons, and the details of the bar, like the mounted gator head, help develop a strong sense of place. Next is an illustration of the night Fat Charlie and Spider head out on the town for an evening of revelry to mourn their father. We can see the hustle and bustle of the after-work crowd, with Spider leading the way, glowing with women all around him, and Fat Charlie struggling to keep up. Again, a clear sense of setting is provided here. Here's an image of the sketch that weaselly Graham Coates draws on a notepad as he speaks to a client on the phone. It began as an apple, but it ends up looking faintly like a mountain lion and serves as foreshadowing for where the character eventually goes. This is an image of Charlie's return to Florida. He and Mrs. Higgler ride in her station wagon to Mrs. Dunwoody's house, which stands apart from her neighbors' homes due to her unique front yard decorations. Here's a great illustration of Charlie's outstretched hand as he recovers from his journey to the mythical caves. He reveals the birdwoman's black feather, and the splatter effect around the drawing brings some dramatic dynamism to this image. After Spider comes to rescue Fat Charlie from prison, the two teleport to a town that Spider believes is in Italy, which allegedly serves amazing hot chocolate. The rest of the city is done in contour lines, which focuses the attention on the two brothers who need to break bread, apologize, and communicate. Spider looks relaxed and cool as they sit out on the cafe patio, while Fat Charlie's body language reads as more guarded, as he skeptically listens to his brother. A few birds can be seen off in the horizon. Once the birds attack the brothers at the cafe, Spider zips them to the desert, but they are soon swarmed by vultures. We can make out the bird woman on the dunes opposite the brothers, as she seems to stalk or haunt them wherever they go. In order to escape the vultures, Spider moves the brothers to Antarctica, hoping the lack of birds there will allow them to finish their conversation. It isn't long before they're swarmed again, this time by penguins. This image does a great job of conveying the cold. Finally, the brothers are able to find some reprieve from the birds, as Spider transports them to an abandoned mine. Here, the brothers are truly able to begin reconciling, and the darkness of the setting comes across well in this 2-page spread. Again, we note that Charlie is closed off, while Spider speaks emphatically. So much of their characterization is captured in their postures here. This illustration depicts the setting of the restaurant and the Dolphin Hotel in St. Andrews. We can see the buffet and the band in the background. Fat Charlie takes the long way around to avoid the band's singer, and when he returns to Daisy at their table, he's surprised to see Graham Coates sitting there. Here we have Charles and his son Marcus walking down the beach together in the morning. In the foreground are 2 starfish, which have a few symbolic possibilities, but perhaps best represent Charlie and Spider. The lighting details in this piece are great, as the characters move off into the sunrise. The color illustrations are on thick, glossy photographic paper, and all land within 4 pages of the text they coincide with. Let's take a detailed look at them now. The first illustration, the frontispiece, is a depiction of an early scene of Fat Charlie at work in his tiny office, looking out the window at the gloomy weather. He imagines a beautiful beach. The gulls, the yellow sky, and the beach chair next to the water all add to the imaginative half of the image, where the bright color juxtaposes against the mostly black and white of the realistic half of the image. This split recalls a similar effect that was used on the cover image. The second piece is a depiction of a wonderful scene in Chapter 1, when Fat Charlie's father explodes down a hospital hallway with a New Orleans band. The central figure in yellow seems to glow, while the rest of the band in purple plays Yellowbird, Charlie's mother's favorite song. The circular texturing and blurring effects allow the viewer to see and feel the music as they parade, confetti and all, down the cancer ward hallway toward the concerned-looking hospital staff. The third piece is an illustration of Spider's guest bedroom in Fat Charlie's house. Charlie stands at the door in amazement at the opulence of the magical space, as Spider sits in a jacuzzi with his electric drink. Details like the massive fireplace, the windows looking out to a waterfall, and the zebra pattern rug are all present in this double-page image, which is dominated by a blue, yellow, and orange color scheme. The fourth image is a depiction of the ceremony Fat Charlie attends. He's surrounded by the 4 elderly women who each add ingredients into a bowl in the center of the table in order to help Charlie access the help he desires. The orange smoke, the lighting, and the line work around Fat Charlie indicate that the ceremony is already starting to take effect, and the little detail of the penguin candle is a great nod to the textual description of this dark yet whimsical scene. The fifth illustration is a dramatic piece. As he rides an airplane, Charlie visits the realm where Spider is being imprisoned. He finds his brother in the center of the room, bound by chains made of chicken bones, like a fly caught in a web. The owl eyes and the feathers emphasize the source of this nightmare scene, as Spider is tortured like Prometheus. We can see the blood and pain on his face, and the deep red color behind the pale blue of the foreground only adds to the tone of horror. I think this is my favorite of the bunch. The sixth image is a 2-page spread of the climactic scene where Charlie, in his father's green fedora, sings to the creatures in the caves at the beginning of the world. The swirls of line and movement convey the sound and magic of the scene, as we see the animals like elephant and snake and even dragon dancing, while tiger stumbles in terror. I love the choice to depict the animals as crude scribbled silhouettes, which relates to their mythical status in the novel. Finally, this Folio Society edition of the book closes with the same acknowledgements notes we saw in the other editions. I am beyond impressed with this copy of Anansi Boys. Other collectors have pointed me towards it through the comments on previous videos, and they were absolutely right. I typically shop at the lower end of Folio's standard edition price point, but if Anansi Boys is indicative of what's offered at the top end of that range, I'm gonna have to start considering a few other titles from that tier. The cohesion of the design is next level here. It has an amazing slipcase, a great cover, a fresh introduction, decorative page edges, a ribbon bookmark, and 3 layers of art. With sequential chapter pages, integrated black and white drawings, and color images, there is so much going on here. It's no wonder that this particular edition of Anansi Boys has won a bunch of awards for book design. It's the nicest book I own, and has established a new bar for excellence when it comes to my book collection. Perfect. As always, thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for future videos. When it comes to the stories you love, it's always worth upgrading your books.